Well, hello everybody. It's Dr. Scinta. How are you on this Wednesday evening? I hope everybody's doing okay tonight. I am just making a couple little adjustments here. Okay, here we go. All right. Well, happy Wednesday night, and I hope everybody's doing great. Today is a super awesome topic that we're going to talk about. It is nutrition, which is one of the four pillars of obesity medicine. So, for any of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Wendy Scinta, and I am an obesity medicine specialist. I am board certified in family medicine, but then on top of that is a layer also called obesity medicine. And obesity medicine is non-surgical weight loss, so it is has four pillars: nutrition, exercise, behavioral modification, and then medication or medical management. It is the science of disease reversal, and it is really what we all need to be thinking about in this day and age of medicine kind of being turned on its head. So, one of the pillars that we're going to be starting with today is probably the most messed up, confused of all the pillars that are out there, which is nutrition. If you know me, you know that I'm a truth teller and I like to bust myths. And there are so many myths in the nutrition category. So, and there's a lot of diets that you can get started on and be confused about and spend a lot of money on and, waste your time and effort and sometimes even get sicker. So we want to make sure that we go through this and talk about the most common ones that are out there, and then just bust some myths along the way. Talk about the positives, the negatives, what would be best for you, and hopefully teach you something along the way. Okay, it's not my intention today to give you a scientific review of all the diets. It is really just to say I've been doing obesity medicine for over 16 years now, and I'm going to give you my personal anecdotal experiences with these things, because I've done them all and I have taught them all. So and used them all with patients. So let's get started. And hi to those of you who have joined, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. And if you don't, you can watch it later and maybe pick up some tips. All right, so first of all, let's just start out with a quick little introduction about, the topic of nutrition and what we're going to talk about today. But I think, something that's really important to understand is we are in an obesity global crisis right now. They call it globesity. But in the U.S. alone, 42% of adults are obese and 20% of our children, which is so sad. And that is escalating so very quickly. It got so much worse with COVID. So it's a huge crisis we're in. One of the biggest, and if not the biggest, I really believe it's the biggest factor that has played a role in our obesity epidemic is the food that we're eating. So if our grandparents were alive today watching what we eat, they would be horrified. Maybe our great grandparents for some of us, but either way, we have gone from food that you basically grow in your own yard, you can it, you cook it, you eat it, you add some, raw ingredients, go down to the butcher or whatever, and get some other things. Now you can't even recognize some of the stuff that's out there as food. And that has been a real problem because, to be honest with you, it's been monkeyed with very badly. And things have been put in it that have caused it to be not only unhealthy, but in many cases addictive, especially the bad stuff. So we need to keep that in mind as we go through this process and just sort of understand, what is it that has kept, almost half Americans fat. And it isn't just because we've all just decided to suddenly become lazy and slothy. It has so much to do with what we're putting in our mouths that is being given to us from our local grocery stores. So anyhow, so I think something very interesting to talk about is just how polarizing this is right now. So as long as I've been in this field, I have never seen such a diversity of what people think is the right thing to eat. So we have a huge vegan movement right now, and we have a huge only meat movement, and which is no vegetables, just meat. Okay, and then in between we have a smattering of other things. So it's just all over the board, and everybody's convinced that their way is the right way. So let me first of all start by saying that, if I were to give you the best diet for you, I would say What have you been successful on in the past? Because previous success dictates future success, okay? So the best diet for you is the diet that you can stick to today. All right. So if you were put on a meal replacement only program and you lost a ton of weight, but you want to lose some, spend 6 weeks getting a little bit trimmer for summertime, that's not going to be realistic, right? Because you're going to have to get into a program and blah, 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 blah. But maybe you had some success with keto in the past, and that's something you can do just on your own, going to your grocery store. So that might be a good option for you. Okay. So that is just a little pearl, but just think about the things that you've done in the past that you've been successful on, and then just kind of ask yourself, is this something I could do right now, as a diet for today? All right. So what we have, what I've decided to do is just kind of take the top ones that are out there right now. Hey, Carrie, how are you? It's nice to see you. And Kathy, how are you? Cindy, Elena, nice to see you guys. All right, let's talk about, first of all, the keto plan. So we're going to do just the basic ones that are out there right now that are very popular, okay? So first of all, let's start with like the keto Atkins type of plan. So what is a keto? What does keto mean? So this diet really focuses on working on alternative fuel sources. So normally we would be working off of glucose, right? We eat something, it gets stored as glycogen in our liver. It gets pulled out when we need it, and most of our cells function off of glucose, okay? That's the normal way the body works. But with the keto plan, you basically are cutting your carbs back so much that you're depleting your glycogen stores, and you're forcing your fat cells to kind of contract and be the source of fuel for you through the fatty acid cycle, which creates ketones. Okay, now, if you've ever done a ketogenic plan, you know that at the beginning it can be a little challenging, because if you really want to get into the induction phase, it's about 20 grams of net carbs, which isn't much, okay? Net carbs, by the way, is total carbs minus the fiber and then minus the sugar alcohols. So that's the net. So 20 grams of net carbs for the induction phase, it's challenging. You really have to plan. You got to really eliminate, a lot of things. And if you're someone who eats a lot of carbs, that first week or two is going to be a little challenging. You can get what's called the keto flu, which is basically your body is just getting rid of so much inflammation and so much fluid. You tend to get low in your sodium. And one of the best tricks for the keto flu, by the way, is just to do a little bouillon, and that'll get your sodium back up and you'll feel a lot better. Okay, so anyhow, you start out restricting your carbs to about 20 grams, and then eventually you get into the second phase of it, where you kind of limit your carbs to 40 to 50 grams, okay? So it's all about carbohydrates and counting carbs. You don't really, I believe that you don't have to be super, super strict with how much fat, how much protein. Just stick to your carbs, keep it simple. We've made everything so difficult in nutrition. Keep it simple, stick to those carbs, and just focus on those for the day. Okay, and you can get the little purple sticks that you pee on, and if they're purple, you're in ketosis. I'll tell you, if your breath smells awful, you're in ketosis, because that's where we get that whole fruity breath thing from. So that is the basics of a ketogenic plan, also known as an Atkins plan. It's really been repackaged in the new, the newer days. The Atkins diet came out back in the 60s and 70s. All right, so what are some positives here? So first of all, since you're eating a lot of fat and protein, you're not going to be hungry really on the keto plan. So most people will tell you they're satiated throughout the day. The glucose stays very stable. You're not riding any carb wave. You feel, when you're working off of ketones, you feel good. Your brain is clear. Your memory is sharp, and your energy is good. So that's a plus. And then the other thing too, if you're someone who really struggles with carbohydrates, and they are addicting, so pretty much all of us struggle with them to some degree. What you find is, once you're off the carbs, once you get past that first week or two, you really don't crave them, as long as you don't touch them. Okay, if you do touch them, however, on a keto, you're going to have to get yourself back into ketosis again. So you really, really, really have to make sure all the bad stuff's out of the house before you start. Okay. Never hungry and increased energy. Absolutely. It's like the most amazing combination of things if you can do it. Okay. So that's a plus. And then, as I mentioned, when you're in ketosis, you just feel good. You really feel good. Within like a couple days, you're going to feel amazing. And you're going to lose a lot of water weight very quickly. So again, just keep in mind if you start to feel like a little fluish, just do some bouillon, and that should bring your sodium up and help you feel better. Something I will tell you about the keto plan is, in addition to the keto flu, if you're not someone who's used to exercising in ketosis, then you got to slowly increase your exercise. I made this mistake myself when I was doing a ketogenic plan, and I went for a run, and I like literally had to stop halfway through. My body's like, it just seized up. So you have to slowly get your body keto adapted so that it can learn how to run off of ketones. So that's something also that you may need to know, is just to slowly ease into your exercise. And then if you are someone who is a vegetarian or a vegan, don't even try to do a keto plan, because it's just so hard if you don't have those two areas, dairy and meat / fish. It's very, very, very challenging. So that is just my standard advice. Of course, there's people who could probably do it if they're really, really, really good at it. But those are the things that I would tell you about ketogenic plan. So somebody just wrote something about hair loss in the first year. So, any kind of weight loss can cause hair loss, and it has to do more with hormones than it does the actual plan that you do. So hormonal changes that take place with weight loss. But yeah, hair loss can occur with just about anything you do, especially if you lose quickly. Okay, so my biggest tip for a keto plan, if you choose to do it, is you have got to have your fridge full of all the right stuff. Okay, so go grocery shopping, get your chicken, get your greens, get your veggies, get, cheese if you're going to use that for snacks, and pepperoni, all the things that are on keto. Make sure your fridge is full. Get everything else out of the house, because literally if you have like 1 to 2 crackers, you're going to mess up your whole day. Okay, so just get all the bad stuff out of the house if you can. Okay. So here's a question coming from the other side. Is it okay getting your carbs on keto through vegetables like broccoli, spinach, and cauliflower? Absolutely. The total carbs that you have, your net carbs, again, in the induction phase is about 20 grams of net carbs. And then it goes up to about 40, depending on which plan you do after that. So the source doesn't matter. I would say make sure you're getting your protein in, because we want to preserve muscle mass. So that's important. Okay. Hi, Energetic Madres. Nice to see you. Thank you. I'm glad you like my glasses and my haircut. All right, let's keep going. So those are the and then the second tip, okay, this is just my personal opinion that I have seen. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the testosterone in men makes them like to eat meat more, but they really do great on keto, and they also lose faster on keto. And I don't, they have higher metabolism, obviously, because they have more muscle. So if you've got a guy in your life or that needs to lose weight, this is a really good one that they can stick to. They tend to like the food on it, in my opinion, and the history of doing this. All right, that's the keto. Any questions about keto? We'll move on to intermittent fasting, which is one of my personal favorites. So if any of you have seen our Instagram, which is under Dr. Wendy Scinta, if you aren't on it, please go on it and subscribe and follow us, because we do a lot of these kind of things on there, or little snippets. I love intermittent fasting, and I think it's very important to understand that with intermittent fasting, people hear fast and they just kind of freak out, like, I'm going to get low blood sugar, I'm going to feel awful, I can't do it, I have to eat when I have to eat, that kind of thing. Our bodies were made to fast. Okay, so anybody can learn how to fast. Some people take a little longer to kind of ease into it. It took me about 6 months before I got my window right. But then once you start to do it, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, and then you can go longer periods of time. Okay, so intermittent fasting is, where you basically consume water and any 0-calorie drink for a certain period of time. That's your fasting time. You sleep during your fasting time too, so that counts. And then there's a pocket of time where you eat. And the most common one that we see is 16-8 intermittent fasting, which is basically you fast for 16 hours and then you eat for 8. So a common window on that might be eating from, 9 to 5, or I see people doing a lot of like 11 to 7, so they start eating at 11 o'clock in the morning, finish at 7 p.m., or the one I do is like 12 to 8 or 1 to 9. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're fasting around that time. You have to have 0-calorie drinks. So if you're a coffee drinker and a tea drinker and you like cream in your tea, you can't do it. You got to go black. You got to learn how to do that. And then during your eating window, you want to eat something, try to make sure that it has some protein in it every 2 hours during the feeding window. Okay, so for me, 12 to 8, I have something at 12, something at 2, something at 4, dinner at 6, done by 8. Okay, and that is basically the way that it works. So with fasting, just like with a keto plan, you're really focusing on carbs. With fasting, you're really focusing on your timing. Okay, and it's not to say that you eat junk during that 8-hour window. What I mean to say is eat healthy things with protein in them during that window time. But the key is you've got to squish it all into that 8 hours or you're not going to lose weight. Okay. So how does intermittent fasting work? Very similarly to a keto plan. And that is once you have fasted for 12 hours or more, your body starts to switch over to ketones as an alternative fuel source. So now you're in ketosis, but in a completely different way. It has to do with fasting. So again, all the advantages that we talked about being in ketosis are going to be true. You're going to feel really good on it. And for people who are cancer survivors, I'm one of them, something that happens that is so wonderful with intermittent fasting is the cells go through programmed cell death more rapidly. So cancer cells tend to not go through programmed cell death, and that's why they keep replicating. So it helps promote remission for people and prevents cancers for others. So it's very, very good for that element. All right, that's the basics of it. Hi, Antoinette. How are you? It's nice to see you. So the pluses of intermittent fasting is if you're someone who tends to skip breakfast anyhow, it's a super easy thing to do because you start eating at whatever time that would be, like 11 or 12. And then the key is, though, don't keep eating into the night. You got to really stop at that 8-hour window. So if you start at 12, stop at 8. Start at 1, stop at 9. Okay, and don't go past it. Okay, that is the key. Since it's mostly about timing, you don't really have to be obsessive about your macros, okay? But you should still try to eat every 2 hours during that time and eat healthy. And fasting, as I mentioned, it is so good for you. And in addition to just the benefits of ketosis, when you're fasting, you just have you get rid of your inflammation, you get rid of your excess fluid that's hanging around your cells, you have that mental clarity, and you just feel really good. I don't know how else to put it, but anyhow, it's awesome for that. All right, minuses are if you like to imbibe and have a little alcoholic beverage before you go to bed or something like that, you got to get it in before you go, before your window is up. So if you're a 12 to 8er, you got to drink that glass of wine and be done by 8 o'clock. It has everything to do with the brain thinking that you're not getting food. So if you go past that window, then you're going to be in trouble. So try to squeeze it all in there. Okay. And the other thing that I would say as far as a potential negative is, for women in particular, we do tend to undergo hypoglycemia much easier than men. So I always tell people ease into it. Okay, so start out with just a 12-hour fast. So, start eating at 8, finish at 8. Almost anybody can do that, right? And then bring it up a little bit. Maybe start at 9, finish at 8. Then start at 9 and finish at 7. And work your way into a 16 total hour fast with the 8-hour eating. Take your time with it. Everybody can do fasting. Everybody can do fasting. Okay, it's just a matter of just how long it takes you to get yourself into that place where your body will accept ketones as the alternative fuel source. Okay, so don't let that word scare you. If you start, I will give you here's a couple other tips here. if you start to stall a little bit on intermittent fasting, what I tell people is try to throw a 24-hour day in there once a week. So that sounds scary, right? 24 hours without food, oh my God, it's like being in jail. No, 24 hours just means that whatever time you finished your dinner the night before, you eat your dinner the next day. Okay, so if you finished your dinner at 7, you eat dinner at 7 the next day. So you are getting one meal in. And remember, the fasting time also includes the time that you're sleeping, so it's not as bad as it sounds. Okay, and I would say the other thing too is, 24-hour day, by the way, is easy after you've been doing fasting for a while. You'll see it gets easier and easier. My biggest problem I have with people who fast is they undereat. So they'll eat something right at that timing, say 12 o'clock if they're going 12 to 8. And then they might skip all the way to dinner time. And then they get mad if they don't lose weight. And the key is every 2 hours. Have something come in, have some protein, keep it healthy. Okay? And you're gonna lose on it, you're gonna feel great. And you're gonna, oh my gosh, your blood work. I couldn't believe how much better my blood work was when I started to do intermittent fasting. Your cholesterol goes down, your glucose goes down, your insulin goes down, everything gets better. So it's just overall a very great lifestyle. And oh, that's awesome, Kathy. So Kathy's been doing intermittent fasting for 2 years now, 1 meal a day, and she says she's never felt better. I totally agree. I absolutely, totally agree. Okay, so let's keep going here. So now let's talk about like the primal and paleo plans. Those are kind of, you don't hear about them as much, but to tell you the truth, for me, I think that this is, this can be used for sure to help get off of carbs. And it's also a great way to live, doing a primal or paleo plan. So what is a primal or paleo plan? So in general, it is what I try to follow. So basically what you're doing is you're getting rid of all your whites, your breads, your potatoes, your rice, and your pasta, and all your sugar, okay? But you can have fruit, and you can have complex carbohydrates like that. And you can have veggies. Now, the difference between primal and paleo is paleo actually removes dairy too. I understand the philosophy behind the fact that we didn't, drink cow's milk 10,000 years ago, but it's really, to me, dairy is an important category. I love yogurt. I love cottage cheese. I love, I have cheese sticks for snacks. So for me to take that out, it's hard. So I really like the primal better, but everybody's different. So, the great plus of doing a primal or a paleo is, it is not hard to do. You just have to remove those categories that I mentioned, and they're not good for you anyhow. So again, you're going to feel better if you take out that yucky stuff. And then, I think one of the minuses is when you're doing a primal or paleo plan, if you want to lose weight, you really do have to track your food. And you have to kind of focus on, a bit of a calorie restriction in order to get that benefit. Now, as I say that, I will also tell you that most of us are getting a lot of our excess calories from those categories, sugar and, starchy carbs and stuff like that. So just removing that category alone is probably going to help you lose weight. It certainly will help you with water weight because you'll have less inflammation. Okay, so tip number 1 for the primal paleo is, and this is actually a tip for everything, just get all the crap out of the house before you start. Okay, get your house in order. And don't get it out of the house by eating it. Get it out of the house by throwing it away. Okay, so get the chips, the crackers, the rice, the pasta, the potatoes, the cookies, any kind of sugar you have in the house, get it all out before you even start, and it'll make any plan better for you and easier for you. Okay, so that's my number 1 tip there. And you do have to try to think about always meal plan, but think about tracking your food when you're doing that plan. All right. Then finally, my last one that I'm going to talk about today is the vegetarian or vegan plan. So if you want to do vegetarian or vegan because you have a personal philosophy about it or a political reason why you want to do it, that's fine. I would say if you're trying to do it because you think it's going to help you lose weight, I have not found that to be the case for very many people, because our highest food calorie consumption that we have as Americans is yucky, starchy carbs. So what I find is people who go into a vegetarian or a vegan plan and don't really know what they're doing. And some do it who don't even like vegetables, which just blows my mind. What they end up doing is they become carbivores and they end up eating tons and tons of carbs and they feel miserable and they gain weight. And, a lot of times they're doing it because someone is kind of, urging them to do it, or the family's decided to do it for whatever reason. And I just have not found it to be a very good way to lose weight unless someone is really committed. Okay, so that would be my big take home from that. And I think you also have to remember that if you're going vegetarian, you are not going to get B12, so you're going to need to supplement that. If you're going vegan, you're also going to need to we all have to be careful with our vitamin D and calcium, but even more so if you're doing a vegan diet. Okay, now, pluses for this, as there's a lot of options available now, and there's a lot of different foods out there that taste like meat if you want it to taste like meat, or a hot dog if you want it to taste like a hot dog. I never quite understood why you would eat something that's something else that tastes like what you really want. Just eat what you want. But anyhow, there's a lot of options for that. And then, the minus again is if you're not a vegetable lover, just don't even start it, because it's not going to be a good plan for you. Okay. I always tell people, if you really are serious about going on a vegetarian or a vegan diet, get yourself a good book. There's so many out there that are written about how to do it the right way. And that way you'll be poised for success. Okay? So, all right. That is the overview. Okay? So let me come up here and see if I missed anything. Hi, Mary Jo. Nice to see you. And there's our Instagram site. Okay. Kathy lost 80 pounds. That is amazing. Good job, Kathy. Good job. All right. So let's go over some questions that I got ahead of time. And I think one that I got is really good to talk about, and then we'll bust some myths. Okay. But this particular question was about fats. There was confusion about, is fat good? Is fat bad? Should I look for low fat? That kind of thing. So my answer to that is, I'll give you the simple answer and then I'll explain it a little bit better. Okay. The simple answer is this: most fats are good for you. Okay. Most fats are good for you. Now, why didn't we know this back in the early 80s when the low-fat revolution started? There was a very flawed paper that came out that started this whole craze of fat being bad. And what happens is if you take fat out of food, it tastes yucky. So now you have to put something in to make it taste better. And what they put in many cases, were carbs, one of which was high fructose corn syrup to make food shelf ready. Okay. As soon as we went low fat, the obesity epidemic went like this. Okay. And it has not stopped ever since then, because we've never really gone back. So in general, fat is good for you. Okay. It's satiating. It actually, you can only eat so much of it, so you can't eat a ton of calories from it. Now, there are two exceptions to the rule. Okay. Number one is trans fats that are not natural trans fats, okay, that are chemically processed. And that includes things that they put in shelf-ready food, and also the type of oils that they use to make fried food, okay? So those are not healthy. And then the other exception isn't really an exception. So if we talk about saturated fats, if for whatever reason your old-fashioned doctor tells you to cut the fat off your meat because of your cholesterol, fine, go ahead and do it if you want to make them happy. But here's what I'll tell you. If you're following a ketogenic plan or something where you are actually losing weight, even though your cholesterol may go up temporarily, as you lose weight, since cholesterol is so fat dependent, it will come back down again, and it will come down way lower than it was before. So you have to be careful to just not get a moment in time with that and then have your cardiologist freak out. Just, wait and do another checkpoint when you've lost like 20 pounds, and you're going to notice that your cholesterol is going to be much, much better. So I think in general, we have learned that saturated fats are not bad fats. They are not the best fats of all the fats, but they're okay. The key is to, to lose weight, and that will make more of a difference than anything on your cholesterol. Okay, so that's the short answer. Let me just really quickly tell you a little bit more about. So we already talked about trans fats. So trans fats are a type of unsaturated fat that come in natural and artificial forms. They in artificial forms, they're vegetable oils that are chemically modified to stay solid, and that's how they keep the food shelf ready. At room temperature. They can increase our risk of heart disease. They also can increase our blood pressure. And some examples are the ones I mentioned: fried foods, margarine, vegetable shortening, baked goods, processed foods, processed goods. And then natural trans fats are actually a type of trans fat that come from cattle and sheep and goats. And they're not harmful as long as they're taken in moderation. Okay. Unsaturated fats are, we have polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats. We call monounsaturated fats MUFAs, MUFAs. MUFAs are found in almonds, cashews, peanuts, and pecans, olive oil, peanut oil, almond butter, avocados. They actually are great because they decrease your cholesterol and your blood pressure. They're super good for you, okay? Polyunsaturated fatty acids, or PUFAs, are actually essential fats. You have to get them in because our body doesn't make them. And they are excellent for your health. Omega-3 fatty acids are in that category. They decrease cholesterol, they decrease your risk for coronary artery disease, and also lower your blood pressure. And then omega-3s are in salmon, herring, sardines, trout, walnuts, flax seeds, chia, and canola. And we already talked about saturated fats, but they are the sad, misunderstood fat, misrepresented for a long time. They used to think they were related to heart disease. That data was found to be flawed. We now know that's not the case. We can find saturated fats in beef, pork, lamb, dark chicken meats, chicken skin, and then high-fat dairy foods and tropical oils. Okay? So, yay, Kathy's in agreement with me. That's awesome. Okay. Now, and then Energetic Madre has done such a good job maintaining her weight loss. I can't even remember how much she lost, but it was a large amount, and she's done it for now 6 years. And those are like my favorite stories, when you change someone's life, get them off whatever meds they were on, and really help them to feel better. I don't think she was on many, but either way, I'm just so proud of her for keeping this off for 6 years. It's just amazing. No simple carbs or white sugars. That's the key. Absolutely. 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 All right. So, should we keep going? Let's keep going, and we'll bust some myths. Okay? Let's go. And then we'll be done. But hopefully you're learning something. Again, this is just me kind of just spewing, vomiting my whatever's in my brain. And hopefully it will be something that you can share with friends, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. And unfortunately, when they correct the data, they don't ever really tell you that it's been corrected. You still see a lot of options, for example, of low-fat foods out there. And there's just really no need to do that anymore, unless you're trying to restrict your calories and you want to, have a low-fat cheese stick instead of a regular one and save 30 calories. Other than that, there's really not much of a reason to do it anymore. All right, let's bust some myths. We have quite a few here. So, number 1, exercise helps with weight loss. I know this has nothing to do with the topic, but for women, can we lose weight with just exercise? Anybody know? Yes, no, maybe? So I will tell you this, it's all about the kitchen, baby, for women especially. So it's what you put in your mouth that helps you lose the weight. The exercise is such a minuscule part of it. And for women, exercise really, whether you exercise or not on your plan, is not going to increase. Julie, you're right. Oh my gosh, I taught her well. No, that's right. Exercise, actually, Julie will probably agree with me that exercise tends to, especially at the beginning of a diet, make it even harder for someone to start to lose because they're hungry and they can't follow the nutrition plan. So what I tell people is titrate your exercise to your hunger level and you'll be most successful. I don't ever try to keep people from exercising who want to exercise, but I just have to explain to them, you have to be, understanding and realistic that, here's what we're dealing with. It's going to be the food. So if you're overeating what you're allowed, maybe cut back a little bit. Okay. But men can lose a tiny bit with just exercise alone, just because they're men, and it's not fair, but that's just the way it is. But not much. Again, it's all about the food. Okay. Oh, I hate this one. All right. You should drink your weight in water. Yes or no? Should you drink your weight in water? So if I have a patient who's 400 pounds, should that person drink 400 ounces of water? So I will tell you, I did have a situation like this, and this person got really, really, really sick. And the answer is definitely a big no. And the reason why the person got sick is because the sodium got really, really low. If you drink too much water, you drop your sodium and you can end up in the hospital. That's how serious this is. So I don't know where that came from. I've seen it all over the place, and I've talked to people about it, but that needs to end. And we actually did an Instagram post on this. You really, for cellular function, you don't need more than 64 to 82 ounces of water a day, in general. Okay. Less than that, you're probably going to be dehydrated. More than that, if you're working out, is fine. I still wouldn't go above 120, on most days, okay? It's not doing you any good, and it could potentially make you sick. And the way that you'll know you're drinking too much water is you start to feel fatigued, and you salt crave. So I hate that one. It's bad, very bad. All right, so here's another myth. My cardiologist told me to go on a low-fat diet. Is that a good idea, yes or no? Hopefully I drove this point home. Low-fat diet, yes or no? This is what cardiologists are still recommending. It just makes me like, ugh, every time I see that. So I will tell you, well, you probably know, the answer is no. Okay, low fat tends to be high carb. And what did we talk about at the beginning about what led to the obesity epidemic in the first place? The low fat craze, which led to high carb, shelf-ready food, high fructose corn syrup on the rise, and before you knew it, a huge problem with the obesity epidemic. You guys are so smart. Look at that. Everybody got that one right. Yay, good class. All right. Next one, intermittent fasting is impossible to do because some people just can't fast. Yes or no? I've heard this so many times, and I'm always like just biting my lip, like, everybody can fast. Okay, just give you the answer. Everybody can fast. Okay? It just takes some people a little bit longer to get comfortable getting into it, especially if there's someone who tends to be hypoglycemic. So if you remember, start out with a 12, then go to 13, 14, till you eventually get to 16. And then you're going to start to lose weight and feel amazing. All right? No, that's right. Energetic mom. Madre, no. All right. Hi, Mary. Nice to see you. All right, next is, I need to count every macronutrient to lose weight. Yes or no? Gosh, I really, really hope you guys get this one right. So in other words, I have to have X number of grams of carbs, certain number of grams of protein, certain number of grams of fat. That's right. Oh, I like it. Yes, the more O's on the no, the better for this one. No. Okay, why? Why have we made it so complicated? It just doesn't have to be, okay? We talked about what you focus on with each of the plans. One's timing, one's carbs, one of them is, the starchy carbs, right? So it's different for different things, what you focus on, but don't make it more complicated than it has to be. It's already so hard to lose weight in this obesogenic environment. Keep it simple. KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, or whatever that acronym stands for. All right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let's keep going. Okay, so it's super expensive to eat healthy. This is a tough one. Is it super expensive to eat healthy? What do you guys think? I think I wish that it was easier to eat healthy and that cost was not a factor. You can eat healthy still on a budget, but we do have problems with access sometimes to healthy foods, especially in inner cities. and the crappy stuff that comes in, cans or bags or whatever, bottles, it's not food, but it's cheap, right? So it can be challenging to eat healthy if you really want to eat like organic and grass fed and no antibiotic milk and that kind of thing, which are all the right things to do. It's going to be more expensive, and that really stinks. But they did a really cool article in the New York Times probably about, I don't know, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and they basically said, can you eat healthy, a healthy meal? And how did it compare to McDonald's? And really, you can chicken with salad and beans and a little bit of rice, and that's a very healthy meal that you can make very cheap, and it is much less than what you would pay to go to McDonald's for your family. So there's ways to do it. I wish it were easier, is my answer. It costs you more to be unhealthy. Oh my God, Cindy, you're so right. Because then you got to pay for your meds for the diseases you have and all that kind of stuff. And then you got to, then your mobility gets affected and lots of doctor's visits and that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, so that was a little tricky question. I can still lose weight and drink my beers and sugary drinks as long as I eat less. Yes or no? Ooh, I know that there's a specific point I was trying to drive home here because I have so many people who say this to me. I'm not willing to give up my alcohol, or I'm not willing to give up my, my 5 beers a night or my 3 Pepsis. Okay, but can I still lose weight? So the answer is it's really, really, really hard. Okay. So, and here's why. Okay, let's just look at the Pepsis. So you take a 20-ounce Pepsi, it's a couple hundred calories at least. It doesn't fill you up, right? So now you're drinking a couple hundred calories of something that is all high fructose corn syrup. It's all going to go into your fat cell. And you are not full, okay? So it's not just the calories, it's the quality of the calories, and that's a very horrible quality of calorie that doesn't fill you up, and it's high fructose corn syrup, which is a whole nother lecture. So now same thing with beer. Beer is straight carbs. I mean, you can even drink low carb beer, but then what I find is people just drink more. So you really have to, I have to negotiate a lot of times with these kind of folks and just say, okay, well, how many are you having? 5? Okay, can you cut it down to 3? Okay, and then we just kind of try to work from there. I'm not a super strict physician. I understand that it's a give and take, but it's really hard. And that's something that if you can give up, it's really important to do so. How'd you guys do? Hell no, that's right. And why would you do that? I have no idea. Because truthfully, those things are obviously addicting, or in some cases, people have, true physiological addictions, especially to alcohol. So we really need to try to minimize that as much as we can. Okay, next one. Meal replacements are old school, yes or no? Meal replacements are old school. They came out in the 70s, or old school. It's like so yesterday. Keto's where it's at. Yes or no? 5, seriously, yes. Meal replacements are not old school. And in fact, I will tell you this, that I could not get through a day in my busy office without having at least 1 or 2 of them myself, because they're quick, they're easy, they're nutritionally, especially if you're doing medical grade quality, they're nutritionally complete. They have a lot of protein that will fill you up. Liquid, actually, if you do a shake, tends to fill you up more than a solid does. There's a whole volumetrics principle that goes along with that. So they're very, very helpful. And we use a lot of them at our office because the choice that I give you is a medical grade meal replacement will be more likely better than something that you would make on your own, especially if you're really busy and don't have a lot of time. So you guys all got that right. Good job. All right, let's see. Calorie restricted diets don't work. Calorie restricted diets don't work. I'll just be quick with this one. calorie restricted diets work if you do them the right way. Okay, now, if you don't eat all day and then binge at night and consider that calorie restricted, but I'm eating at nighttime, but I didn't eat all day, you're going to gain weight. Okay, if we figure out your metabolic rate, which we do in our office, and then put you on a meal plan that's very specific where you're eating fairly regularly, and it's under that number, you're going to lose weight, and usually pretty predictably. So that is the answer. Now, remember, diets like ketogenic, intermittent fasting, you don't have to count calories really on those. You have to count carbs and ketogenic. And with intermittent fasting, just follow the principles that I told you and you're going to do great. Okay. There is no best diet for me. I've heard people say that. So is there a best diet for you? Yes or no? I'm going to draw you guys a picture while you're figuring out this one. And it's going to be something you've probably seen before. All right. Can you see that? This is a picture of a bell curve. So they've actually done studies on different diets and found that there's a bell curve shape to each one depending upon the person. There are some people that will do a ketogenic diet, let me go over there, and not lose much. There's other people that will do it and will lose a ridiculous amount, and then there's all these folks in the middle there, okay? So the answer is, there is a diet that works for you, and I think we're going to get more and more specific as time goes on what would be the best genetically for you. We're starting to do things like this already in our field. But if you did something, again, that worked for you before, it will probably work again if you try it again, as long as you prepare. Okay? So, all right. I think it's getting a little late. I'll just pick, let's see if there's anything here. Oh, this is a good one. Fruits are bad for you. Fruits are bad for you. Oh my gosh. How did fruit, which grows on trees, which was put here by God, suddenly become bad for us? Okay, the answer is, this will be where I'll end here. The answer is this. Fruits are not bad for you. Fruits in general are very, very, very good for you because they have so many phytonutrients in the skin. They have tons of fiber. They have a lot of vitamins, okay? Now, here's the problem. When you are doing a ketogenic diet and you're trying to be low carb, you're going to have to eat the low glycemic fruits like berries or something like that, okay? Just when you're doing that type of a plan. But in general, I've never had someone come to me and say, I got this way because I ate too much fruit. It doesn't happen because there's so much fiber in fruit that it fills you up that you can only eat so much. Now, I did have one guy who had an apple situation where he would eat like 8 apples a day, which, just during apple season, but it was still sort of like, can you just do a couple? I mean, why do you have to have 8 every day? But very rare that is an issue. And in general, fruits will give you enough satiety because of what they have in them and lots of good stuff in there too. All right. Yes, frozen fruits like frozen blueberries, like Energetic Madre said, so good. Frozen grapes. Take your grapes and put them in the freezer and then take them out, and they really do taste like candy. They have a type of grape called a cotton candy grape. You throw it in the freezer, it tastes like cotton candy. It's crazy. All right, so thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope that you learned something. And if you thought this was valuable, please share it with people that you think might benefit from it. I will tell you that just a couple things when it comes to meal replacements, which we touched on, it is very different what you see in the stores and what you see in medical offices that have medical grade quality. In fact, I have had probably now at least 10 people who I switched from store-bought products to our products, and that's the only change I made. Everything looked the same from a macro calorie standpoint, and they lost weight. So I think that there's things that are put in there sometimes, additives that can get in the way of weight loss. So just be careful. That's all I'm going to say. The other thing I want to say is that in general, Okay, and this was a rule that was taught to me by my own mentor when I first started obesity medicine. And he was the cutest guy. His name was John Kelly. And he walked around with hard-boiled eggs in one pocket and, I don't know, cheese sticks in the other, and he'd snack on that during the time we were talking. He's a cute little old man. But anyhow, he said to me, here's the best advice I can give you. Eat local and eat in season as much as you can. Okay, if you have the wherewithal and the means to start a garden on your own. It will be organic if you do it right. Get some chickens or something if you can. You know, the more you can provide to yourself, the better it will be. Buy from your local, I'm in Madison County, so we have a lot of farms in the area. We buy a half a cow, a half a pig, grass-fed, stuff like that. We keep it in the freezer. I have a garden. I used to can with my grandmother when I was little, but now we freeze, and it works great. And I encourage all you guys to do that too. So that's probably the best advice I can give you. All right, I don't know how long we went, but I know I'm tired and thirsty, and I bet you are too. So I wish you guys a great, great night, and thank you so much for joining me. All right, have a great day. Have a great night. Bye now.